Edwardian England. Just close your eyes and you can picture it: candlelit banquets, gleaming silverware, embroidered tablecloths, and servants gliding soundlessly across marble floors in perfectly tailored uniforms. Even the service bells seem to chime with elegance. One gentle ring and hot tea appears like magic. A flawless illusion, a lavender-scented dream, and then reality. Because if you really believe that being a servant in an Edwardian country house was some kind of anonymous, aristocratic experience, then, dear listener, allow me to gently tear that glittering wrapping paper to shreds, layer by layer, until all that's left are tears. Let's begin with a lovely number, a number so striking it might make you spill your tea. 1.5 million people. In early 1900s, Britain worked in domestic service. Yes, 1.5 million. That's more than those who worked in factories or on farms. They didn't make machines or grow crops. They made beds. They polished brass. They carried hot water up 3 flights of stairs. They existed in silence, as shadows behind lace curtains. And you thought they wore silk and ate biscuits. No. They outworked 17 hours a day. Yes, you heard right. 17 In a 24-hour day, that left a generous 7 hours for everything else. They woke at 5 a.m. to light coal ranges and didn't stop until near midnight, when they finally collapsed onto something generously referred to as a bed, usually a straw mattress, in a freezing attic that doubled as a meat locker. Too cold? Don't worry. You'll warm up after you've lugged 6 buckets of hot water. Upstairs, so Lady Catherine can bathe. Nothing like a bit of aristocratic cardio to start the day. And forget your dreams of a cozy bedroom with soft blankets, warm lamps, and the comforting hum of electricity. Here in Thornfield Hall, or any grand house like it, you had the attic, where rain trickled through the roof and winter was less a season and more a physical assault on your bones. If you were lucky, you shared that tiny space with 3 other girls and perhaps a cheerful mouse or 2. And don't forget the highlight of your duties: chamber pots. Because while the chandeliers may be crystal and the cutlery may be sterling silver, human waste is still very much human. And who has the honor of carrying away Lady Thornfield's most private deposits? Why, yes, you, a 15-year-old girl from East London. Congratulations. Thinking perhaps the food makes up for it. Think again. While the family dines on roast goose with port reduction and sugared plums, you sit at the end of a long cold bench devouring a stew with more potato than meat and bread older than your enthusiasm. But that's fair, really? Because you aren't there to be seen or heard, or, heaven forbid, felt. You exist to make everything appear seamless, effortless, magical. Tea doesn't pour itself. Table linens don't iron themselves, and toilets certainly don't clean themselves. But the people upstairs must never wonder how any of that happens. Thanks to you. Of course, when you tell someone you work at a grand house like Thornfield Hall, their eyes light up. Oh, how splendid they gush, imagining you wandering past columns of marble, pausing under chandeliers, perhaps locking eyes with a mysterious gentleman in a cravat spoiler. You are never, ever allowed to make eye contact. What they don't see is you waking in pitch black. They don't hear your aching limbs creak as you carry scalding water. They don't smell the soot and coal clinging to your skin. They don't know the feeling of being completely, utterly unseen by someone whose hair you just helped curl. And still, when you tell the truth, if anyone bothers to ask, they say, but surely it wasn't all bad. Oh, absolutely. If by not all bad you mean soch, surviving another day, without being dismissed for breaking a teacup or, heaven forbid, sighing too loudly in the parlor. The Edwardian world loved polish. But under all the lace silver and mahogany polish was a system that ran on invisible people. People scraped raw by work, aged by stress, and lulled into believing that this was simply their lot in life. But enough of that. Don't want to ruin your bedtime, do we? If you're listening to this while settling under a warm duvet in a quiet room, just remember there was a time not so long ago when millions of people would have done anything for your bed, your privacy, your freedom from 17-hour shifts. Ah, yes, so very romantic indeed. Congratulations. You've just been unceremoniously dropped into the body of Lucy Bennett, age 15, daughter of a widowed seamstress, former resident of East London's finest collection of drafty alleyways and suspicious puddles. Your prospects dim, your shoes damp, your new job glorious. You're a scullery maid now, the very bottom rung of the glittering, soul-squeezing ladder that is domestic service in Edwardian England. You don't even get a proper uniform, just a too-big dress and a cap that looks like it was made by someone legally blind and personally offended by fabric. You wake up to a darkness so absolute it feels personal. Not the warm, gentle darkness you might know, the kind with a soft glow from your phone charger or a street lamp bleeding in from outside. No, this is old-school darkness, the kind that seeps into your lungs and settles in your bones. You lie there on your crunchy straw mattress, wrapped in a blanket that appears to be made from recycled hair shirts. It smells like mildew coal dust, and a faint lingering whiff of other people's dreams giving up. The air is bone cold. Not brr, I should get socks cold. We're talking the kind of cold that sharpens your breath and makes your teeth reconsider their commitment to staying in your mouth. Around you, the other girls snore softly. One of them mutters something about bread in her sleep, or maybe rats. You're not sure. You try to swallow the anxiety clumping in your throat, but it's no use. Today is your first day at Thornfield Hall, and nothing, absolutely nothing, has prepared you for what that means. Your mother, bless her eternally practical soul, arranged this post through a friend of a friend who owed a favor and possibly a pint. It's a respectable house, she said. You'll have food and a roof over your head, as if that combination alone were enough to satisfy any rational person. What she meant, of course, was this is the least terrible option available to someone like you. Working in a factory. Two dangerous spinning wheels don't care about fingers. Working on the streets, don't even think about it. But working in service. Now that's positively respectable, assuming you don't mind being treated like intelligent furniture. And then the bell rings. Not a sweet little ding. Not a gentle invitation. No, this is a violent metallic rattle that sounds like the universe is clearing its throat to remind you who's in charge. Somewhere in the dark, a match flares, and the flickering light of a stubby candle reveals the face of Martha, the head housemaid. Up you get, girls, she whispers, her voice clipped and cheerfully resigned. Cook wants the range lit and water boiling before she comes down. What building? You attempt to stand up, but your legs are still recovering from yesterday's journey, a cramped, clattering train ride from London, followed by a long, uphill walk with your cardboard suitcase flapping open every few steps. You met Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, upon arrival. She looked at you like a butcher examines a slightly off piece of meat. Bit scrawny, she muttered to no one in particular. But I suppose she'll do. Apparently you're filling in for a girl who left without notice. Going to a factory, Martha had whispered with theatrical horror. Imagine, as if that's any kind of life for a respectable young woman. You don't know how to feel about this new existence. The house is beautiful, yes. It looks like something from a storybook, a very cold, judgmental storybook. But every corner is lined with rules. Every glance, every sound, every breath must be measured. Martha nudges you again. Come on, new girl. No dawdling. You nod automatically. There's no time to process anything, no time to be afraid. Because the moment you get downstairs, you're given a list of tasks long enough to qualify as a short novel. Light the fire in the scullery. Boil water for washing. Polish all the brass fixtures. Scrub the outside steps. Clean and line up all 14 pairs of boots. Assist cook with breakfast prep. Empty the ash buckets from every upstairs fireplace, and just for fun, scrub the entire kitchen floor. And all of that, dear listener, is before you're allowed to eat. But hey, at least you're not being asked to carry the piano. Yet, you try to hold your back straight, as Martha instructed. You try to keep the list in your mind without letting your soul collapse under the weight of it. You remind yourself this is the safest option, the cleanest, the most respectable. But deep down in the quiet space between one chore and the next, a thought flickers. If this is the safest life available to you, what does that say about the rest of the world? You descend the back stairs with the grace of a newborn calf on ice. Your arms ache. Your legs wobble. Your feet, bless their soggy little souls, are somehow both frozen and blistered at the same time. You're now on your 6th trip, hauling buckets of steaming water from the kitchen to various wash basins in the family's chambers. This is not a job, it's an endurance sport. Keep your back straight, Martha hissed earlier. Shoulders back. No sloshing. Which is a charming suggestion, really, for someone not carrying 5 kilos of boiling water up 3 flights of stairs in a dress designed by sadists. As you round the corner, bucket handles digging into your raw palms, you nearly crash into a vision in silk and lavender. Lady Catherine, the eldest daughter of the house, a creature of delicate bones and impossible cheekbones, floating down the corridor in a dressing gown so beautiful it probably cost more than your entire life. Her hair is pinned in soft waves. Her slippers make no sound. You're breathing like a bellows and smell faintly of fireplace ash. And just as Martha warned you, freeze. Eyes down, press against the wall. Do not speak, do not move, do not exist. Lady Catherine does not acknowledge you, not a glance, not even the smallest twitch of the nostril to indicate awareness of your sweaty presence. She glides past you as if you were a part of the wainscoting, a decorative element in her morning routine, and in a way you are. This is your first real taste of the unspoken rule of Edwardian service. Invisibility is power, and your power is not to have any. Once the water is delivered, and the last hearth has been cleared of ash, you make your way slowly, painfully, toward the servants' hall for breakfast. It's now been nearly 5 hours since you woke. You have burned approximately 4,000 calories. You have scrubbed, hauled, polished, and boiled. You are vibrating with hunger. So naturally, breakfast is a bowl of thick, lumpy stew and a slice of bread that could double as a building material. There's more root vegetable than anything else, but at this point, you'd eat a boot if it came with gravy. You take your place at the servants' table, or rather near the table, because the scullery maid doesn't get a seat at the proper table. No, your place is crammed onto a half-sized bench, shoved against the wall precisely 2 inches too short to sit on properly, with your knees tucked under your chin like a punished schoolchild. From here, you can observe the sacred seating arrangement that governs the universe of Thornfield Hall. At the head of the table, Mr. Simmons, the butler king of the underworld. At the foot, Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, queen of clipped syllables and eternal disappointment. Next in line, the valet, the lady's maid, cook goddess of scalding fury. Then footman, housemaids, kitchen maid. And then, you. No one tells you this hierarchy aloud. They don't have to. It's in the way chairs are pulled out, in who serves themselves first, in who gets the thicker slice of bread. It's everywhere, written into the very air. Just as you take your first blessed spoonful of stew, the bell rings again. Of course it does. You're summoned to assist cook with tea for the drawing room. You stand legs screaming and carry a tray of delicate china tiny sandwiches and sugary confections up to where the family now lounges like bored cats. And there they are, The Thornfields, draped in pastel gowns, sitting among velvet cushions, casually sipping from porcelain teacups that cost more than your mother's entire rent. They are the picture of elegance, of order, grace, leisure. You are trembling, doing advanced calculus in your head, just to avoid dropping the tray. The tray is your enemy. The tea is lava. The cucumber sandwiches are weapons of psychological warfare. Lady Thornfield takes a sandwich without looking at you. Success. Lady Catherine, however, does something far more dangerous. She looks directly at you. "You're new, aren't you?" she says evenly. You freeze again. Panic floods your body. Are you supposed to answer speak, nod, blink in Morse code? What's the protocol when a higher life form addresses a speck of dust? Before you can decide, Lady Catherine looks away, already disinterested. And just like that, the moment passes. But it leaves something behind, a residue, a thought. Not all the people upstairs are the same. Some of them see, some of them notice. But whether that's a blessing or a curse, you're not quite sure yet. You'd think after nearly 8 hours of uninterrupted scrubbing, hauling, boiling, and dodging eye contact, you'd be allowed to sit for 5 minutes and simply blink, maybe breathe. Maybe allow your spine to return to its original shape. But this is Edwardian service, darling, not a spa retreat. Because the thing no one tells you about being the lowest-ranked servant in a house like Thornfield Hall is that the work doesn't end. It just evolves, like a sentient beast with no natural predator and a personal grudge against you. After tea is served upstairs, you rush back down to polish the brass railings. Scrub out the servants' entrance steps again because the mud seems sentient, and prepare the ash buckets for disposal. The air is heavy with soot, and your hands are permanently blackened with fireplace grime no matter how many times you wash them. Then come the boots, 14 pairs, all lined up like an army of leather judgment waiting to be scrubbed, buffed, and shined to a mirror gloss. You and Martha work in near silence, partly from focus, partly because neither of you has the energy left to speak without weeping. As the hours crawl by, you become aware of something strange. Time has flattened. You can no longer tell if it's midday or dusk or the end of time itself. Your body continues robot-like, following orders, remembering sequences, responding to bells, like some trained circus animal. Your mind, however, floats somewhere above you, quietly asking questions like, is this what life is? Will I die scrubbing someone else's mud from someone else's boots? Was the stew even real, or did I imagine it? Eventually, the family retires to change for dinner. The bell rings again. This time, you and the kitchen maid, Betsy, must wash and dry the dinner service, while the next course is already being prepped. Every plate, every fork, every dainty little glass with a gold rim must be spotless and returned instantly. Cook, whose volume and temperament appear to be directly linked to the temperature of the oven, is now in full war mode. If a single dish is late, there will be blood, not metaphorically. She once threw a cleaver at a footman. It missed, but the threat lingered. You work with Betsy in a sort of frantic ballet scrape. Wash, rinse, dry stack. Over and over. You are 2 girls at the bottom of an empire's machinery, spinning plates to keep the illusion alive. But even illusions crack. It's nearly midnight when the final dish is dried, the final crumb swept. The kitchen is clean by Cook's terrifying standards. You finally retreat upstairs. Your legs feel like they've been replaced with jelly and regret. Your arms are noodles. Your head is stuffed with fog. You are for the first time in your life beyond tired. Not the I could use a nap kind. The deep, bone-deep fatigue that comes from giving everything and still having more demanded. You collapse onto your straw mattress. The attic is silent except for gentle snoring and the whisper of wind outside. And then footsteps. Rushed, heavy, followed by voices. Your eyes snap open. Martha sits up. "What's that?" you whisper. She's already reaching for her dressing gown. "Don't know," she mutters, already halfway to the door, "but it can't be good at this hour." You sit upright, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the hallway commotion. There are whispers, gasps, a name repeated. Then Martha returns. Her face is pale, her voice is flat. "It's William," she says quietly. "The hall boy. He's collapsed." Collapsed. Apparently he'd been working all day with a fever. No one noticed, or rather no one asked. He kept fetching boots, answering bells, running errands in the cold, until his body simply gave up. You feel a strange tightness in your chest. You barely know William. He was quiet, pale, always looking down. But still, he was one of you. A shadow in the same hall, a fellow gear in this enormous whirring engine. Martha sighs. They've called the doctor, but he's bad. And just like that, you're reminded this job isn't just exhausting. It's dangerous. There's no safety net here. No sick days, no rest. Just work until something breaks. And tonight it was William. You lie back down, but sleep doesn't come easily. The attic feels colder now. Colder and a little less safe. By some miracle, or perhaps just pure exhaustion, you manage a few hours of sleep after the chaos surrounding William's collapse. The attic falls quiet again, though the air feels heavier now, like the house itself is holding its breath. At dawn, the bells ring just as aggressively as ever, because of course the house doesn't care that someone nearly died. The silver still needs polishing, the fires still need lighting, the eggs aren't going to poach themselves. Downstairs, the air is filled with the familiar morning aroma of damp coal, burnt toast, and mild despair. Mrs. Wilson calls you into the butler's pantry, her eyes sharp, her bun tighter than ever. You steel yourself, convinced you've done something wrong. Maybe you didn't polish the brass thoroughly. Maybe someone saw you breathing in the drawing room again. But instead of a scolding, she gives you something far more terrifying, a compliment. "Not too much breakage yesterday," she says almost to herself. "You kept quiet, followed instruction. That's rare." You blink. Is this praise? Are you dreaming? Is this how fainting feels? "Thank you, ma'am." You manage, eyes downcast as you've been taught. Don't smile. Don't appear pleased. They might take it back. But the moment is short-lived. "With William gone, we're short-handed," she continues briskly. "You'll take on extra duties. Learn fast. Can you do that?" You nod before your brain has even caught up. "Good. That's it. Good. No time for congratulations. No well done. In this house, success is simply the absence of failure. You are now officially climbing the ladder of responsibility. Unfortunately, it's less a ladder and more a greasy pole you're expected to shimmy up blindfolded while balancing a tray of crystal goblets. Your days blur into one long soap-scented routine. You rise before dawn. You scrub polish, carry wipe sweep. You learn the geography of the house through muscle memory. 12 fireplaces, 7 staircases, 5 different places to store linens, and only one room where you're allowed to cry in peace, the broom cupboard, upper east wing. One morning, Martha finds you carefully folding towels and adjusting the spacing on the kitchen hooks. "Look at you," she mutters, adjusting your cap. Almost respectable. And in that moment, you catch a glimpse of yourself in a small mirror behind the door. You don't recognize the girl looking back. Your dress, though too big, is no longer wrinkled. Your apron stiff with starch. Your hair is neatly pinned under your white cap. And in your eyes, something new. Not pride exactly, but dignity. Not because you're proud of the work, but because somehow you're still standing. You've entered the invisible world of Edwardian domestic service. A world where everything looks graceful from the top and everything feels impossible at the bottom. And you, Lucy Bennett, are at the very bottom. But you're still here. You're learning the rules. And the most important one is this. The family doesn't want to know you exist. Your job is to be efficient, invisible, and above all silent. Stand up straight, don't fidget. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for the love of everything holy, don't drop anything. Because one broken cup can undo an entire week's worth of obedience. And yet somewhere deep in that endless routine, a strange thought takes root. Maybe you're not just surviving. Maybe one day you'll find a way to step out of the shadows. It's nearly 6 o'clock and you're standing at attention outside the butler's pantry, waiting for the final inspection before dinner service begins. Martha fusses with your collar. Remember, she says, her voice clipped, but not unkind. They don't want to know you're real. You nod. You've heard this before. Every movement rehearsed, every breath measured. You're not a person in this house. You're a mechanism, a human tray with a heartbeat. Dinner is underway upstairs. Below stairs, the pace turns manic. As soon as a dish is served, the used plates are whisked back to the kitchen with military precision. You and Betsy are stationed like factory cogs. Scrape, wash, rinse, dry, stack, repeat. And don't drop anything, or cook will launch you into the stratosphere via cleaver. Your fingers are red and raw. Your sleeves permanently damp. Your wrists ache from polishing silver that will be dirtied again within the hour. And through it all, the kitchen rings with the clatter of dishes and the occasional shout from upstairs, someone needs mustard. Someone forgot the spoon for the fish course. Someone didn't like the pâté. You run. You fetch. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. And then it happens. You're delivering a fresh plate to the drawing room, your hands trembling just slightly, as they always do, and you reach toward Lady Catherine's place setting. She glances up, just for a moment, barely a heartbeat. But in that flicker of an instant, your eyes meet, and something passes between you. It's not pity, not command, not dismissal. It's recognition. You flinch, of course, because servants are not meant to be seen, much less acknowledged. And yet, there it is. And then it's gone. She looks away back to her soup. The moment shatters like thin glass. Back in the kitchen, you say nothing. You return to your post beside Betsy and resume your endless rhythm. Scrape, wash, rinse, dry. But that look, it lingers. It scratches at the inside of your thoughts like a mouse in the walls. Could she actually see you? As the final course is served and the pace finally slackens, you catch your breath in the scullery. Thomas, one of the older footmen, leans against the wall, watching you with an amused half-smile. Getting quicker, I see, he says. Careful with that. You raise an eyebrow, confused. You don't want people thinking you're too clever, he explains. Best way to make enemies in service is to be too ambitious. You blink. Ambitious? You're not planning to become queen. You're just trying to avoid tripping over your own apron while carrying a plate of flaming pudding. Know your place and stick to it, he says. That's my advice. And just as you're absorbing this unsolicited career guidance, James Thomas's younger, ganglier sidekick chimes in with his usual brand of footman wit, her place being 6 feet tall and empty-headed. He earns a cuff on the ear from Thomas. You say nothing. Not because you agree, but because you're thinking. You're starting to understand that this world has its own rules, its own ceilings, its own invisible glass walls. It's not just about doing your job well. It's about not doing it too well. Don't rise, don't shine, don't be noticed. In this house, efficiency is good, but potential is dangerous. And yet, you can't forget that look, the flicker in Lady Catherine's eyes. As if for 1 second she wasn't seeing a scullery maid. She was seeing Lucy. It's late, the kind of late where even the kitchen mice have called it a night. You've managed to limp your way back up to the attic, where 4 tired bodies lie still under scratchy wool blankets. The room is silent, save for the faint crackle of the wind against the old slate roof and the occasional creak of the floorboards settling under the weight of the house's centuries. You're just beginning to drift off, bones aching, mind foggy, when you hear a whisper. Lucy, it's Annie, the youngest of the other maids. Her voice is soft, hesitant, like someone gently knocking on the edge of sleep. You sit up slightly. What is it you murmur? She hesitates. In the faint moonlight, you see her holding out a crumpled envelope. I got a letter from home, she says. But I can't really read it. Never learned properly. The words land like a quiet bell. You blink surprise not at the request, but at the trust it implies. No one asks for help lightly in a world like this. Vulnerability is a rare currency spent only in moments of true need. You slip quietly from your bed and into hers, the mattress groaning under your combined weight. You take the letter edges, smudged with soot and fingerprints, the writing faint but familiar like a voice from far away. You begin to read. Dear Annie, we hope this finds you well. Your voice is a whisper, barely louder than breath. The letter is simple, filled with family news, a lost tooth, a borrowed kettle, returned rent, paid just in time, thanks to the money Annie sent. Little ordinary things strung together like pearls, each one a reminder that home still exists, that somewhere out there, the world continues. We pray for you daily and hope your position is secure. Love from all of us. When you finish, there's silence. Not the cold silence of duty, but the soft silence of comfort. Annie's eyes are wet. I miss them, she whispers. You nod. You don't say me too. You don't have to. In that moment, the attic isn't just a miserable, freezing hole above a house that doesn't see you. It's a lifeboat, a shared space of exhaustion, and now connection. The rest of the house remains as it was, a machine of elegance, run by invisible hands. But up here in the dark, surrounded by straw mattresses, and the smell of candle wax and coal dust, you remember something important. You are not alone in this. And sometimes a letter from home can feel like a revolution. The next morning begins the way they all do, with fire water, scrubbing ash repeat. Your hands are red and raw again, your apron spotted with soap, and your brain already cataloging the next 8 tasks before you finish the current one. You are invisible again, until you're not. It starts with a knock on the kitchen door, soft, uncertain. Then Cook calling out with a raised eyebrow. Lucy, you're wanted upstairs. Upstairs. You blink. Being summoned upstairs outside of a chore is usually a bad sign. Like being asked to speak to the headmistress in private, rare, alarming, and never pleasant. You wipe your hands on your apron and climb the stairs, heart racing, stomach unsure if it should feel pride or panic. In the corridor outside Lady Catherine's bedroom, a maid you barely know whispers. She asked for you, by name. That doesn't help. Inside the room smells of lavender and pressed linen. The floor is scattered with dresses, soft pastels and rich velvets, some draped delicately over chairs, others tossed across the bed in a rare moment of uncurated disorder. Lady Catherine stands by the wardrobe, clutching a letter, her brows drawn tightly together, in something that looks remarkably like real emotion. Lucy, she says, barely glancing at you, I need your opinion. Your opinion. You're so stunned, you nearly curtsy out of instinct. This isn't your usual work, she continues a little distractedly, but I noticed you yesterday. You seemed observant. You blink, feeling your cheeks flush. Not from the heat, there isn't any, but from the sheer absurdity of hearing those words spoken to a scullery maid. Thank you, my lady. I'm sorting gowns. Some for keeping, some to give to my cousins in Hampshire. She sighs, clearly irritated. They're less fortunate, apparently. Poor dears. Mother says charity begins at home. You glance down at the fabric pooling on the floor, fine silks and brocades that cost more than your yearly wage, and resist the urge to laugh. Less fortunate? You who slept with your knees pressed against a cold attic wall last night are standing in a room filled with dresses being donated to girls who probably have parlors and fruit with breakfast. But you say nothing, because what would you say? Lady Catherine holds up a pale green muslin with a skeptical expression. This one makes me look insipid, doesn't it? You open your mouth and close it. You were not trained for this kind of service. Still you nod slowly. It's not the best color for your skin, my lady. She smiles. A real one, small but unmistakable. See, honest, I like that. She returns to sorting, then pauses. Lucy, has anyone ever asked you what you want to be? The question hits you sideways. What you want to be? It's like asking a teacup if it dreams of becoming a vase. You hesitate. I don't know, my lady. I've never thought about it. Lady Catherine nods slowly, almost as if she expected that. Neither have I, she murmurs. About myself, I mean. Funny, isn't it, all these choices for what to wear, but none for what to be? There's a silence after that. Not awkward, not cold, just strange, shared. As if for a single moment you were not two people separated by rank class and 3 floors of staircase. You were just 2 young women trying to understand the rules of the world you'd inherited. But it passes, of course. It always does. The dresses are folded. The moment ends. You curtsy gently and leave. Downstairs the stove is still hot, the brass still dull, and your tasks are still endless. But something has shifted. Someone asked what you wanted. And that question lingers in your mind like steam rising off a boiling kettle, impossible to ignore. The autumn wind has sharpened. Mornings are colder. Your fingers go numb halfway through the first water bucket. You develop a kind of rhythm, hauling, pouring, scrubbing, hauling again, with the dazed precision of someone sleepwalking through war. And then just when you think the pace couldn't possibly increase, Mrs. Wilson makes an announcement over breakfast. The family will return on Saturday. They're bringing guests. 10 in all, shooting party. The words hang in the air like gunpowder smoke. Shooting party. 2 simple words. But to the staff, they might as well have been a declaration of war. Mr. Simmons closes his eyes briefly. Cook lets out a noise that is not human. Betsy drops a spoon. We'll need the blue bedroom, the rose bedroom, and all 4 guest rooms in the east wing. Prepared by Friday, Mrs. Wilson continues briskly. And mine, that means fires lit, linens changed, and decanters stocked. Lady Thornfield wants everything immaculate. Around the long, low table in the servants' hall, a collective groan rises, immediately stifled. Expressing emotion in front of Mrs. Wilson's like farting in church. Everyone knows it happens, but not here and not now. You stare into your tea, trying to imagine how you'll fit another 10 guests into your already full days. The answer, of course, is you won't. You'll just sleep less, move faster, smile thinner. The days blur. The house becomes a machine in overdrive, every gear spinning at maximum speed. The footmen polish boots until their hands cramp. You're sent to dust rooms you didn't even know existed, parlors filled with creepy hunting portraits and armchairs no one sat in since Victoria wore black. You spend 3 hours one morning arranging flowers. Not growing them, not cutting them, just arranging meticulously silently so they match the colors of the wallpaper. That evening you find yourself back in the rose bedroom smoothing a pillow for the 5th time, when Martha passes by with an armful of folded towels. You'd think the king himself was coming, you mutter. Martha snorts. Oh, worse than that, she says. The king doesn't need his bath water at precisely 105 degrees. It's said as a joke, but neither of you laughs. Because the truth is, the shooting party doesn't just mean more work. It means being watched, judged, silently ranked. The guests bring with them their own servants, of course, valets with too much cologne, ladies' maids who wear silk under their aprons, and footmen who look like they've walked straight out of a tailoring catalog. The Thornfield staff stiffen. The invisible rules get tighter. It's not enough to scrub the floor, you must scrub it quietly with posture. It's not enough to polish the silver, you must polish it without breathing, apparently, lest your peasant breath dull the shine. Every task feels like a test, and the judges wear brocade. Late one afternoon, you're given a brief moment of quiet, an errand that takes you into the village. A delivery to the vicarage. For the first time in days, the air feels normal. You walk slowly, not because you're lazy, but because this stretch of gravel lane between the hall and the church is the closest thing you've had to a holiday. At the vicarage gate, you're met by a kindly man with silver-rimmed spectacles and a woolen coat too big for his frame. Hello there, he says. Visiting? Sort of, you reply. I work up at the hall. He nods knowingly. One of Mrs. Wilson's girls. I'm Reverend Clark. You're welcome here anytime, my dear. We have service at 11 on Sundays. Or Just quiet if you need it. You thank him, then walk back the way you came, feeling something unexpected settle in your chest. Kindness. It's rare in this world, precious, like finding sugar in your tea or a bed without bed bugs. And for a moment, it makes you wonder what it would be like to be somewhere you didn't have to earn the right to breathe. Back at Thornfield, the bells are ringing again. Guests arriving, luggage, more luggage, a loose pheasant feather blowing across the path like a warning. And so it begins. The shooting party hits Thornfield Hall like a well-dressed hurricane. Gentlemen arrive in packs, carrying guns longer than your arm, and opinions even longer. They laugh loudly in the drawing room, trail mud across the marble floors, and consume alarming quantities of meat and port. The ladies, they drift through the corridors in clouds of perfume and taffeta, changing gowns twice a day, as if the fabric might disintegrate if worn longer than 4 hours. Downstairs, it's open warfare. The boot room alone could be declared a national disaster zone. Dozens of pairs, each with their own polishing quirks, arrive caked in mud, needing urgent attention before dinner. Thomas, the senior footman, spends his day furiously scrubbing, cursing softly under his breath. Shooting parties are the worst, he grumbles halfway through what looks like the 100th pair of boots. You kneeling beside him with a bucket and brush, try to keep up? Is Christmas just as bad, you ask, genuinely curious? He snorts, but his expression softens. Of course it's busy, but it's different. There's music. Cook makes treats. We get presents from the family. Nothing fancy gloves, scarves, but still, it feels like something's ours for once. You nod, imagining it. A day of work that's not just endured, but shared. Maybe even enjoyed. A moment when the machine slows just enough to let the people inside it breathe. But that warmth is fleeting, because the house, as always, takes back what it briefly offers. One night, as the family entertains their guests with music and cigars, you overhear a conversation that doesn't seem meant for your ears. It drifts through the half-open door of the library, Lord Thornfield's voice booming stern. Catherine is 23, still unmarried. People are starting to talk. A pause. Lady Thornfield answers, her voice tight with worry. She's always been different. Books, ideas, and now this Mr. Blackwood business. You freeze. You've heard the name. The guest from another estate. The one Lady Catherine seems to smile at, differently. She needs to do her duty, Lord Thornfield insists. Henry did. He barely knows Lady Margaret, but he proposed. Why should Catherine be any different? Another pause. Because she is Lady Thornfield, finally says. She always has been. The words hang in the air like frost. You retreat quietly unseen, but the conversation follows you like a shadow. It rattles around in your mind, colliding with the silence you live in every day. Because here's the thing no one says aloud. You and Lady Catherine are not so different. You in your attic, her in her parlor. Both trapped, just differently furnished. She wears silk, you wear starch. She's expected to marry a man she barely knows. You're expected to clean the chamber pot of one you'll never meet. And yet both of you are bound by duty, by expectation, by what others have decided you must be. The cage looks nicer upstairs, that's all. Later that night, as you lie in bed, exhausted and wide-eyed, you find yourself wondering, if she walks away, could any of you? The answer, of course, is complicated. But the question is new. And in a house like Thornfield, even asking a question like that can feel like rebellion. Oh, winter came down like a heavy curtain, quiet, pale, and absolute. Snow blanketed the Thornfield grounds in a soft hush that made even the crows tread lightly. Icicles lined the stone archways like the teeth of a frozen beast, and inside the house the chill found every crack and corner, including your bones. But there was change in the air, and not just the weather. You, Lucy Bennett, scullery maid, lowest of the low, have been promoted. Not by a speech, not by ceremony. Just a short nod from Mrs. Wilson and a slightly stiffer apron. You'll start as a junior housemaid tomorrow. No more coal buckets. You'll turn down beds, dust the library, help with flower arrangements, try not to make a mess of it. That was it. No congratulations. But the difference was real. The work was still endless, of course. But now it came with polish, not soot. With starched cloths, not fireplace ash. You handled crystal, not buckets. You noticed for the first time how many different kinds of silence existed in a library. The soft kind between pages. The brittle kind between social classes. And then Lady Catherine returned, but not alone. With her came Mr. Edward Blackwood, a name now whispered, with the scandal of a dropped teacup. He was handsome, but not in the cold, polished way of the other gentlemen. His hair was a little too unruly, his smile too open, and he looked at Lady Catherine the way no man had yet dared to like she was real. The house reacted like it had been set on fire. Lady Thornfield pretended to be gracious. Lord Thornfield did not. The staff knew something was coming. They just didn't know how loud it would be. It happened on a Tuesday. You were arranging clean towels in the upstairs corridor when the shouting started. Lord Thornfield's voice, deep booming, breaking through walls. Lady Catherine's fierce cracking, almost desperate. You froze hand still on the linen stack. You will not disgrace this family. He is not a disgrace. He's a man. A good one. You will not see him again. You cannot stop me. There was the smash of china, the slam of a door, the sound of someone storming down a hall, and then silence. The next morning, Lady Catherine was gone. Sent to her aunt in Scotland, Martha said darkly over her tea. To cool her head. To come to her senses. You didn't say anything. You couldn't. Because something about the whole thing felt too close, too familiar. You'd felt it in the kitchen, in the laundry room, on the stairs. That same tightening grip of expectation. That same voice saying, "This is who you are. This is what you'll do. And that is final." Only Lady Catherine had dared to say no. And now she was gone. But the silence she left behind, it wasn't empty. It was electric. The days after Lady Catherine's departure pass in a strange hush, not silence exactly, but absence. The house carries on. Meals are served, fires lit, boots polished, but something essential has gone missing. As though the hall has lost its brightest and most disobedient lamp. "She'll be back by spring," Mrs. Wilson says flatly. They always come back, but not everyone agrees. "She's different," Martha whispers one evening as you mend socks by the fire. Always has been. The only one who ever looked a servant in the eye and meant it. There's a pause. Then Betsy the kitchen maid offers a rare thought. Maybe she won't come back. Maybe she's gone for good. It's said half in hope, half in disbelief. 'Cause people like you don't leave places like this. You age into them. But then again, maybe that's changing. You mention your half-day off, how you'd wandered into town and stumbled on a reading circle at the chapel. Servants, clerks, even a butcher's apprentice sitting as equals discussing books like they mattered. Books, Betsy blinks. For us, why not, you ask? Because no one taught us to want more. There's a beat of silence and then quiet agreement. You begin to notice other cracks in the stone. A footman jokes about machines replacing servants one day. Martha admits her cousin works in a shop in Manchester and earns more for fewer hours. Even Cook, usually welded to tradition, mutters about young girls these days refusing posts without days off and decent wages. The world is shifting, slowly, awkwardly, but it's moving, and with it so are your thoughts. You find yourself reading more sneaking moments in the library to thumb through forgotten novels when no one is watching. You listen when the butler complains that younger staff aren't like they used to be, and for the first time you think of thank God for that. And through it all, something unspoken keeps rising inside you. A question, no longer fearful, no longer whispered. What if I'm not meant to stay here? The idea is terrifying, and yet thrilling. Then one snowy afternoon, as you're arranging flowers in the drawing room, the door creaks open. Lady Catherine steps in. She's pale, windswept, visibly shaken. In her hand, a letter crumpled slightly at the edges. Her coat is unbuttoned. Her voice, when she speaks, is tight. "Lucy," she says, "I need to ask you something important." Your heart stutters. You nod. She glances toward the door, then back at you. "If you could go anywhere, where would you go?" It feels like being asked to fly. Like being handed a map of a world you were never meant to see. You swallow hard. I don't know." She nods as if that confirms something. Then her lips twitch in a small, sad smile. "Neither do I, but I'm going anyway." She presses the letter into your hands. "Don't try to find me," she whispers. "I've chosen my own path." Then she's gone. And for the second time that season, the house feels smaller in her absence. But this time you're not left with silence. You're left with possibility. Weeks pass. Snow turns to slush, then to ice, then back to snow again. The hall groans beneath the weight of winter and the silence left behind. Then one morning, Mrs. Wilson pulls you aside, her fingers smudged with chalk dust and her expression unreadable. "There's a letter for you." You freeze. No one sends letters to scullery maids. Certainly not on thick cream-colored paper, with a wax seal and handwriting as smooth as cream. You take it carefully. Your name, Lucy Bennett, written in firm, familiar strokes. You wait until you're half-day off to read it. You walk past the gates, past the frozen fields, all the way to the stream that cuts through the edge of the woods. It's your favorite spot, even in winter. There you sit on a mossy rock and break the seal. "Dear Lucy, I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing from New York City, where Edward and I have been living since our marriage in March." Your breath catches. She really did it. She left. The letter unfolds like a confession and a celebration. She tells you about her new life. No servants, no titles, just workbooks and days of her own choosing. She describes the noise of the city, the smell of roasted chestnuts from carts on the corners, the thrill of walking down the street without anyone knowing her name. "I am now Lady Catherine Blackwood," she writes, "but no one here cares. Isn't that wonderful?" You smile. Not because you envy her, though you do a little, but because she remembered you. You mattered enough for a letter from across an ocean. Back at Thornfield, time ticks on. But change has begun to chip at the edges of tradition. More staff leave and are not replaced. Mrs. Wilson grumbles about lazy young people. Mr. Simmons complains that service just isn't seen as respectable anymore. They say it like it's a tragedy. But you're beginning to suspect it's something else entirely. One night by the kitchen fire, Martha says it aloud. "They're going to replace us all with machines one day. Buttons, boilers, electric this, electric that." "I wouldn't mind," says Betsy. "My cousin works in a shop, stands all day, but has evenings off. And Sundays. Can you imagine?" You nod slowly, not because you can imagine it, but because you've started to. And once the image is in your head of a life with choices, with rest, with names instead of titles, it's hard to let it go. You're still scrubbing, still turning down beds, still moving like a shadow through the corridors of wealth. But now you do it with your eyes open. And in every quiet moment, in the hush of the library, in the steam rising from polished silver, in the space between bell rings, you begin to ask yourself a new question. What else could I be? And this time it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like a beginning. Yet, autumn again. The trees around Thornfield burn gold and red, shedding their leaves like forgotten promises. Inside the house, the fires burn lower. The family has decided to spend the winter in London, and with that comes a second announcement. The house will be closed for the season, Mrs. Wilson declares at breakfast. Only a skeleton crew will remain. Everyone else dismissed. Temporarily. There's a collective intake of breath. Not panic exactly. This happens every year, but this year feels different. You're not dismissed. Not entirely. You'll stay on, Mrs. Wilson tells you. Half wages, but full board. With your experience, we can use you. It's meant to be a compliment. And you nod. But in your chest, something twists. Because you don't want to stay. Not here. Not in a house that's half asleep that feels more and more like a mausoleum dressed in velvet. And then another letter arrives. Lady Catherine again. Lucy, I know what I've done isn't possible for everyone. But it was possible for me. And maybe it's possible for you, too. Edward and I are settled now. If ever you decide you want something different, write to me. There's room here. There's work. There's life. You fold the letter, carefully tuck it into your apron, and try to keep breathing. Later that week, you're summoned to the front of the house. A motor car is idling in the drive, one of the family's, sleek and black and rarely seen below stairs. To your astonishment, Lord Thornfield himself is there. He doesn't speak at first. Just loads your small suitcase into the trunk. Lady Catherine wrote to me, he says finally, asked me to see you safely to Liverpool. You blink. Of all the people you thought might help you leave Thornfield, he wasn't on the list. Least I could do, he adds, adjusting his gloves. She's made her choice. Seems you have, too. The drive is long and mostly silent. You sit stiffly in the back seat, unsure what to say to a man who has barely looked at you for the past year except to comment on the shine of a silver tray. But there is something different in him now. Not warmth exactly, but recognition. As though your departure somehow confirms a truth he's known, but never spoken aloud, that the world he rules is vanishing, and the people beneath its marble floors are no longer willing to live inside it forever. At the station, he helps you unload your suitcase. Good luck, he says quietly. You curtsy. Not because you must, but because for the first time it feels like goodbye. Then you turn and step into the terminal. The station is a rush of sound and steam. Third-class passengers mill about with bundles and children and crates full of dreams. The queue moves slowly, a shuffle toward something new. You stand among them, tired, determined, afraid. Behind you, a life of silence and polish. Ahead, you don't know. Teacher, librarian, shopgirl, nobody, somebody. You grip your case tighter and move forward. And then a voice. Lucy. You turn. There, just beyond the ticket barrier, stands Lady Catherine. No longer in silk, no longer guarded by a maid, but glowing with something else entirely. Long journey, she asks, smiling. You nod. Long, you say, but worth it. It will be, she promises, taking your arm. And just like that, you step through the crowd together, two women who dared to say no. Two stories leaving the same page. Ankh. The ship slices across the Atlantic like a slow-moving dream. You stand at the rail most mornings, watching nothing, become something ocean, becoming sky, sky, becoming mist, mist, becoming land. America. A word that had once sounded like a fairy tale whispered in someone else's story now becomes your destination, your arrival, your choice. The ship docks, and the world opens with a hiss of steam and the screech of iron brakes. You disembark into a terminal, pulsing with life. There are people everywhere, speaking every language, wearing every kind of coat, holding hands and suitcases, and hopes like freshly baked bread. No one looks at your shoes. No one cares where you're from. Here you are, simply Lucy, Lady Catherine. No, Catherine waits just beyond customs, standing beside Edward, who beams like a man who's just found the last candle in a storm. Come, she says, slipping her arm through yours. We have so much to show you. You walk with them through the streets of New York, past newsboys shouting headlines, women carrying books instead of baskets, men who tip their hats and keep walking. The buildings stretch toward the sky like they're trying to escape history altogether. And you think maybe I can do the same. You begin with small things. Helping in a bookshop. Listening more than speaking. Touching spines of novels you couldn't have imagined owning at Thornfield. Going to libraries on your day off. Meeting people who ask what you read, not who you serve. Sometimes you still hear bells in your dreams. Sometimes you still fold towels too precisely. Sometimes when you walk through the city and smell coal smoke, you think of Martha, of Betsy, of Annie's letter. You think of the hierarchy, the invisible ranks, the ceiling you once lived beneath. But you also think of how far you've come, of the girl who learned to read in a borrowed moment, the girl who dared to imagine a what if, the girl who said yes to leaving. Thornfield didn't break you. It shaped you. Not into a servant, but into someone who knows how to observe, how to endure, how to find meaning in silence and strength in stillness. And now, you are writing your story yourself. No bells, no dust, no borrowed names. Just pages open and waiting. The journey ahead is still uncertain. There will be doors that won't open, choices you'll have to make without guarantees. But the greatest change has already happened. You are no longer someone else's reflection. You are Lucy Bennett, and the rest is still unwritten.